Just a quick little video to demonstrate. We have our custom PlayStation 4 controller, Bluetooth dongle, and of course our beautiful Apple II. So we boot up and we're going to load Total Replay. And we see that the Bluetooth dongle's lit up. We turn on the PlayStation controller, and as soon as it turns orange or yellow, we know that it is connected. So I'm going to put it right there so you can see the orange glow. So what we do is we hit Control P, which gets us into the test program. Now this is going to be hard to do because I'm holding the phone, but so if we do the left analog, we see that it's working perfect, and we can hit all four corners. It's very, very precise and beautiful. Now the right one is true analog, which means it does a circle. Okay, so it's not reaching the corners, but it's got even more precision than the other one. So we can see here, the precision's really good. This one's really, the left one is very precise as well, but the left one will reach the corners. So we have one that we're basically stretching the values. So we can stretch the values on the left one, or we can get the pure analog with no stretch values on the right one. The digital controller, let me switch hands. Digital works like you would. It just jumps to the values. So we do left, up, right, down. And if we do the corners, of course the corners work, and everything works great. Okay, now if we hit the buttons, so we have basically here button 0, button 1, button 0, button 1. So we can play like this, or we can play like this. The triggers, we'll also do button 1, as well as, hard to do with one hand, button 0. Now what we've done here is we've implemented these option buttons. So if we press this option button, it turns red, and now that gives us a rumble. So hard to let it so you can feel it, but if you hit this, let me see if I can make it make a noise. Okay, well, it's rumbling. And if I do the button 0, there you go, you can hear it. All right, it's rumbling. So it's really nice when you're playing a game like Load Runner, because Load Runner, while he's digging, you get a rumble feeling on each of the buttons. It's very cool. Okay, the other thing we've implemented is we can switch the buttons. So right now at the square is doing button 0. If we push the left options button, which turns the LED blue, now the X is doing button 1. And we can switch them back and forth. Button 0, button 1. And so this actually reverses all the buttons. So all the buttons become the opposite of what they were prior. And if you have both of them, so if you have the buttons reversed, as well as the rumble turned on, we now get blue and red, which makes purple. So now the buttons are reversed, and we also have, let's see if I can make that noise. We also have the rumble going. So so now that gives you both. Now, a very cool experience, because the Xbox controller has this, is we have the touchpad on the top. Well, we were able to implement the touchpad into the controls. So if we tap the touchpad, it turns the touchpad on. The LED turns green, and now we can essentially put the controller, the XY, wherever we want, and it remembers the position. It doesn't return to center, just like a paddle. So if we're playing a paddle type game, it's a lot of fun because you can go back and forth. With the paddle, let go, paddle stays where it is. It doesn't jump back to center, which is the biggest advantage of the paddle. All right. 3 taps of the PlayStation button, 2, 3, turns it off and disconnects, and shuts down the PlayStation controller for the next time. So there's a quick demo for you. I'll clean up this video and make it look nicer, but there you go. Bluetooth game control using a PlayStation 4 controller, custom PlayStation 4 controller that has been beautifully skinned in Total Replay Apple II style. I love it. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to show you an example of the Xbox controller working with Bluetooth on the Apple II. So if we go into Total Replay, enter the joystick text program, and we plug in, hold on a second, let me just, okay, we plug in our Bluetooth dongle, grab our Xbox controller, and we press the button. Sorry, we gotta turn it on. After a few blinks, it will connect. Okay, it is now connected, and now we will see push button, and we have analog, and we have digital. Oh, sorry, that's analog. We can see it's very precise. We can hit all four corners. And then digital, sorry, let me put that there. Digital up, digital down, left, right, left bottom, right bottom, top right, top left, and then we have button 0, and button 1. And we have these function buttons. The left function button will switch the buttons. So now this is button 1, and this is button 0. If we press it again, it switches it back. Button 0, button 1. The other button turns on, I don't know if you can hear it, the rumblers, which is a lot of fun when you're playing a game like Load Runner, because you can dig left, dig right, which is a lot of fun, and you can reverse the buttons there as well. And then you can shut off the rumble if you want, and now you have no rumble. And press the button 3 times, and it shuts it off. Thank you. So, in addition to using an Xbox controller paired with Bluetooth, we have the right analog and left analog, digital, and the buttons, right? Everything's working. And remember, we can also switch buttons. We can also pair most common 8bitdo controllers. So what we would do to pair an 8bitdo controller is we unplug the Retroconnector with the Xbox firmware. So this is running the Xbox firmware. And if we turn the trim all the way to the right, plug it back in, it puts the controller into pairing mode. And then we turn on the 8bitdo controller, and if we hold down the pairing button, you see it starts blinking like crazy, and the 8bitdo should pair. There we go, it just paired. And now, well, actually now we want to recenter. So after it's paired, you recenter the Retroconnector, so now it's perfectly centered. And now the 8bitdo controller works. And it will work in the same, basically the same as the Xbox controller. So they got the right analog goes to the corners. I'm sorry, the left analog goes to the corners. The right analog is going to give you the corner. Well, it depends on the 8bitdo, but usually, yeah, you see it's starting to cut, it gives you a circular field. But I stretched the software on the Xbox and the PlayStation firmware for the Retroconnector now is stretching the left one. So the left one gets stretched, and you'll see that's why it's a little bit more jumpy than this one. This one's less jumpy because it's got more of an increment to it than the stretched one. And then you got the digital. So everything works. You got your button 0 and your button 1. And if you want, you can reverse it by pressing this button. And now you got button 1 and button 0. And if you press this button, it will enable the rumbles. And you can reverse those as well. And there you go. So the Xbox firmware is... So here's how we pair a controller to the Retroconnector. So on the right side of the Retroconnector, there is this trim screw. We're going to turn the trim screw all the way to the right. So that messes up center, but we'll fix that in a minute. Then we unplug the Retroconnector and we plug it back in. And now when you plug it back in, that'll put the Retroconnector into pairing mode. On the controller, if we make sure it's off, and we hold down share, and we hold down the PS button for a few seconds, and you should see the controller start to blink like this. Literally, I only get one blink, and it's paired. On the computer now, if we get into Control P on total replay, you'll see now center it's out of whack. It's actually all the way in the corner. So what we do is we go back into the trim and we want to turn to put center right back into center. And now every time we start the Apple II, it will automatically connect to the controller, which I'll show that in a second. And we see now that, and now where everything is working perfect. So now if we hit the PlayStation button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it shuts off. And now this is basically just sitting there waiting for a connection. But suppose we shut off the Apple, which is the same as, unplugging the connector. And now we plug the connector back in. Remember, the trim is now put to center. So we plug it back in, turn back on the Apple, and now it's sitting there. And now we hit the PS button. We don't have to hit share because we don't have to put it back in pairing mode. We just hit the PS button, and you'll see within a second, it's now connected, and we're still at center, and everything works. So that's how you connect a PlayStation 4 controller to the Apple II.